name is Shanna and today I'm here to do the mid-year book Freakout tag, the 2020 edition. I've done this tag on my channel every year, I think, since I started BookTube, so I felt like I had to continue with the tradition. So far this year, I have actually read 31 books, I think, which is pretty good for me. My goal for the year is always 52 books. I just want to read a book a week. And yeah, I think I'm doing pretty well. A lot of those have been new reads as well. Not necessarily like new release reads, but a lot of them have been new to me. I don't think I've reread a lot so far this year. I might have, I'm not entirely sure. I can't really remember, but it's always hard for me to answer these questions because when I'm looking at it, like 31 books sounds like a lot, but then I look at it really and I go, but is it a lot? I feel like it's not. At least not enough to answer 15 questions worth of books. Anyway, so we are just gonna jump right in. So question number one, what's the best book you've read so far in 2020? At the risk of sounding totally predictable, I am going with The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes by Suzanne Collins. This is the Hunger Games prequel, and this book I was so ridiculously excited for, but I wasn't sure if it was gonna be good, if it was gonna be bad, if it was gonna try to paint snow in a redeemable light, which is not what I wanted. But then after having bought the book, read the book within 3 days, I literally couldn't put it down. The only time I put it down was at the end of each part. I'm so glad it was split into 3 parts, or else I might have binged the whole thing. It was fantastic. I really, really loved it. I was so compelled. I was so intrigued by the way things were so different than they are in Katniss's time, and I loved everything about the book, and I'm really, really glad that it exists and that I got to read it. Question number two, what's the best sequel you've read so far in 2020? I don't actually think I've read many sequels this year so far. My favorite so far has definitely been A Heart So Fierce and Broken by Bridget Camera. This is the sequel to A Curse So Dark and Lonely, which was the Beauty and the Beast retelling. This one follows Grey and new character Leah Mara as they are sort of trying to escape to this other country, and I loved it. I loved everything about it. It made me so happy. I loved the new characters. Grey was always my favorite character from the first novel anyway, so getting to spend so much time with him was incredible, and I just loved it. I love the sequel, and it's set up for a third book so freaking well, and I just need it like now, but we have to wait until January. Boo. Question number three, what is a new release that you haven't read yet but you want to? For this one, I am going with Venom by Bex Hogan. This is the sequel to Viper, and it came out in, I want to say, April of this year, and I bought it because I love pirates and I really enjoyed the first book, and I'm desperate to read this one. I just haven't gotten around to it yet. Story of my life. So I'm really, really excited to read this one. This follows Marianne on from where we left her off in Viper. She has recently come into a lot of responsibility, put it that way, and it's sort of watching her deal with all of that and sort of trying to defeat this king and yada yada yada. So I'm really, really excited to see how this one goes when I finally pick it up. Question number four, most anticipated release for the second half of the year. Now, I have two because I just couldn't pick between them. So the first is The Lost Book of the White by Cassandra Clare and Wesley Chu. This is the sequel to The Red Scrolls of Magic. It is the second book in the Malik trilogy, and I mean, I think it's called the Elder Scrolls trilogy, but I call it the Malik trilogy because it's all about Malik. I'm so excited for it, you guys. We got the blurb and it looks like it's taking place after City of Heavenly Fire, when the first book took place between City of Glass and City of Fallen Angels. Yes, Fallen Angels. And I just, I love these characters, and I cannot wait to see where we take this, because obviously in the first book we acquired something, and now this is all these years later, and I just can't wait to see what happens. I'm so excited for it. I'm not really excited for Shadowhunters books anymore. Like, I've read the Mortal Instruments and the Infernal Devices. I haven't read any of the spin-offs, so like the Bane Chronicles, Shadowhunter Academy, Ghost Market, that sort of stuff. I've read none of that. Haven't read the Dark Artifices trilogy, and I have not read the Last Hours. Last Hours? Is that the Chain of Gold one? Yeah, haven't read any of that. But the Malik books, I am so here for. And then the second most anticipated release for the second half of the year for me is Stormbreak by Natalie C. Parker. This is the sequel to Steel Tide, and this is actually the final book in the Seafire trilogy. I'm so excited for it. When I first picked up Seafire, I literally picked it up in America because I was in America, it was hardcover, and it happened to be the Booksplosion book of the month, and I just wasn't expecting to love it as much as I do. I don't often nowadays, I don't know, I've sort of fallen off the just picking up a release at random and reading it and then falling in love with the trilogy and having to read it when every book comes out. I've sort of fallen out of that recently, and I hate that that's what's happened to me. But this one I have not. This book series follows Caledonia Styx. She is a pirate. She has this badass crew of other female pirates with her, and they are traveling around trying to defeat the bad guy on the seas. And it's a fantastic fantastic series. I absolutely love it, and I cannot wait to see how it all wraps up in the last book. Question number 5 is your biggest disappointment for the year, and I struggled with this question because all of the books that I've been hyped up for haven't been disappointing. So instead I picked a book that sounded kind of good but then wasn't. And I think it sounded good, and also because Emily enjoyed it, and then I read it and was like, what a load of garbage. And that book for me was Infinity Sun by Adam Silvera, so I will not be continuing on with the series because it just wasn't a good book and it was quite disappointing. But I did feel validated that the majority of my book club didn't like it, so it was disappointing for us all. Question number 6 was the most surprising book of the year, and for this one I have gone with The Drop Off by Fiona Harris and Mike McLeish. I was sent this one to review by the authors, and I really didn't know what to expect going into it. I wasn't sure it was my kind of read, and then I read it all in one day because I couldn't put it down. It was fantastic. It was so good. I absolutely freaking loved it. It was so funny, so relatable. I did a full book review of this one, so I might actually leave that linked in the description box below if you want to go and check that one out, because it was just so good and I highly recommend it, especially if you live in Australia and went to an Australian primary school, especially a public Australian primary school. I definitely recommend. Question number 7, who is your favorite new author? And I have picked Jodie McAllister. She is the author of the Valentine trilogy, and I have met Jodie quite a few times at various supernovas. She's the loveliest person, and I have had Valentine on my shelf for the longest time and just never read it because that's who I am as a person. And I finally read it this year, and oh, why did it take me so long to read? It is fantastic. It's such a good book. I absolutely loved it. I just want to live in this world because murder fairies. Who doesn't love murder fairies? Fairies are great and everything, but they're better if they're murdery. Highly recommend that trilogy. I've only read the first book, but I highly recommend that trilogy. Question number 8 is your newest fictional crush, and for this one I'm going with Finn Blacklin from Valentine by Jodie McAllister. I love him. He is this like bad boy aesthetic, and you'll know bad boys are kind of my thing in books. I am definitely a fan of the villainy, dark, broody sort of character rather than the bubbly, fun, normal teenage boy. So Finn is great. He is a bit broody, a bit like, oh, don't know if you should be seen with me, I'm trying to keep you safe, leave me alone. And Pearl is just like, dude, we don't like each other, but come on, like, you gotta let me help, you gotta let me in. So it's great. I love it. I love him. I love everything about this book. Please go read it if you have not. Question number 9, who is your newest favorite character? Of this one I'm going with Leah Mara from the Heart So Fierce and Broken book. I loved Leah Mara. I loved her story. I loved who she represented and sort of what she represented. She is similar to Harper in a way, but also very, very different, and I liked those key differences in what made them so different and how their choices differed. And I'm a Leah Mara fan, and I really can't wait to see what happens to them all in third book. I can't wait. Question number 10 is a book that made you cry. Now, I haven't really read any books that made me cry this year, because I haven't read any like finales. There's not been anything stupidly sad in any of the books. So the one I did pick for this question was Their Fractured Light by Amy Kaufman and Megan Spooner. This is the finale of the Starbound trilogy, and while I didn't like full on sob, I was listening to the audiobook at work. I could feel myself starting to tear up, and I had to be like, no, Jenny, you're at work, you cannot cry right now. It was just really, really beautifully done, the way all of the stories were intertwined and how everybody came together by the end and what they did, and it was just magnifique, fantastic. I don't know if I would say that's like an underrated trilogy, because I feel like it's talked about enough on BookTube and on Goodreads and everywhere that people still are aware of it and they love it. But I also feel like it happened so long ago now that people are a bit like, oh, you just are reading that for the first time, you know, how good is it? So I'm a fan. Question number 11 is a book that made you happy, and for this one I am going with Steel Tie by Natalie C. Parker. This book made me happy in so many different ways, but one of the ways in particular, there was a scene towards the middle of the book with the 2 new male characters whom, because I'm a terrible person, can't remember their names, but basically they are reformed bullets. So bullets are the military sort of thing where these guys are, well, guys and girls? Guys. Mostly boys are taken and reformed in this way, but they're sort of brainwashed and everything. So these reformed bullets are getting out of that. Anyway, long story short, there's this really cute little scene where Caledonia is sitting on the deck and she sort of looks out and she notices the captain of the other ship who they're helping and his first mate, who is also a guy. They are sort of from afar in a really cute relationship, and I just loved everything about it. And that scene in particular made me so happy when I realized that, because I was like, oh, it just makes sense in this world as well. Like Caledonia spends all of her time with her female crew. Sometimes she and the other girls take comfort from each other. Like it's just a thing that happens. It's very normalized in this world, which is another thing that I really love. And the same thing happens with these bullets. They just take comfort from one another and love it. Love everything about it. Cannot wait to find out what happens in Stormbreak. I need to know. 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 Question number 12, favorite book to movie adaptation you've seen so far this year. So I actually forgot that this movie existed because I just forgot. But the only movie that came to mind, I was like, oh, but the only book to movie adaptation I've seen so far this year is Artemis Fowl, and that film was awful. It was, and that's not my pick. My pick for this one is All the Right Places by Jennifer Niven. I don't particularly like the book, but the film was really, really well done. I really did enjoy the movie. I thought it was much better than the book. I still had issues with certain things that happened, but all in all, it was good. It was a good film, and I did really enjoy it. Apart from that though, I was trying to think. So we've had All the Right Places and Artemis Fowl, and obviously we haven't really had movies being released because of the whole issues. Oh, To All the Boys 2. Oh my god, of course. I haven't read the book for that one though, so I don't think I can count it, but it was a good movie. So I was trying to think, I'm like, what other book to movie adaptations have we had so far this year? I'm sure there's been more. I just either haven't watched them or just don't pay attention. Question number 13 is your favorite video that you've posted so far this year. And for this one, I am going with my Because We Can Readathon Day 1 Storytime video. I am very, very proud of how that video turned out. I loved getting my little montagey scenes. I got to create a fake bus. Just out of context, I created a fake bus for this video, and it was just really, really nice to open up about my experiences as a critique reader. It's something that I've mentioned on this channel before but not really talked about a lot. I no longer critique read for this author for a various number of reasons, but pretty much I really enjoyed opening up about my journey there, and it was a lot of fun, and it was a really cute video, and people seemed to like it, and I really enjoyed it. So that's my favorite video that I have posted so far this year. Question number 14 is, what is the most beautiful book you have bought this year? And I am going with House of Earth and Blood by Sarah J Maas. Oh, I need to get used to that, but look at it. I mean, I don't know how you could pick another book, honestly, unless you've got something really beautiful, but this book is stunning. It's scarily big, but it's stunning. I love it to pieces. Oh, so beautiful. And question number 15 is, what book or books do you need to read by the end of the year? Now, I have a goal in mind that by the end of this year, any 2020 releases that I have bought, I want to have read by the end of the year. So going into 2021, I want no unread 2020 releases on my shelf. Luckily, so far, I don't have that many of them on my shelf. 3 of them are 2020 releases, and 2 of them are books I need to read in order to read the last book. You'll see what I mean. So the first book is Venom by Bex Hogan. Like I said, this is a 2020 new release that I have not yet gotten to. It is the sequel to Viper, and I'm so keen to read it. Next up is House of Earth and Blood by Sarah J Maas. Again, people have been calling this Crescent City, and like, I can see why, but it's called House of Earth and Blood, and it bugs it because everyone's like, oh, Crescent City. I'm like, what are you guys gonna do when the second book comes out? You're just gonna call it Crescent City 2? Because no, Crescent City is the name of the series. House of Earth and Blood is the name of the book. Because I definitely got that wrong. But like, even if you look inside the book, chapter like, oh, can you see that at all? See? House of Earth and Blood, not Crescent City. It shouldn't bug me, but it kind of does. And then the last 2020 release I have on this list that I need to read is The Hand on the Wall by Maureen Johnson. However, in order to read this one, I also have to read Truly Devious and The Vanishing Stair. So there are 5 books on my list of books that I need to read by the end of the year, and that will probably go up because obviously I'm planning on buying Stormbreak, I'm planning on buying Lost Book of the White, I'm planning on buying Midnight Sun. So the list will get bigger. And there we go. That is my mid-year book freakout tag. Thank you guys so much for watching. Let me know in the comment section below your answers to some of these questions because I would absolutely love to know. If you like this video, be sure to give it a huge thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe to my channel so you don't miss a thing. Stay random. Bye.